system, so we don't start at the meeting. We start it after we share our joys and concerns, just so we have a little more privacy to say what's really on our mind. What else before we go to action teams? Speakers, please note our timekeeper is up here, Julie. She will wave in your peripheral vision like that little flicker test at the optometrist's office, how much time you have left. And action team leaders, let's start with Allison and the education team.
First, I would like to, I think there's a lot of petition gatherers here, but Bob McGrath is in the back, and he has a petition for the graduated income tax. So if anybody has not signed that yet, to get it on the ballot, please see Bob and sign it before you leave. It will help, that funding will help fund schools and healthcare. So two action teams are very committed to it. And it's good, yesterday I was out on Alameda at all of the major intersections with the teachers unions. They were protesting or rallying around stronger unions. There was lots of petition gatherers there too. So that was fun. Updates, we're working on a lot of different things for education right now. There's the 26-27 budget that the school board needs to pass in May. May 11th is the final school board meeting. Right now, we are asking people to write to the board to keep cuts away from classrooms. There's been some articles that have been released about central admin growth over the past, I don't know, like 10-ish years. And it's been significant, and we'd like to see those cuts be made at central admin and not in the classroom. I have a template, so tomorrow I will be sending out a newsletter that will cover a few of the other things I'm talking about, and I'll try to be quick. With template newsletters, or template letters to send to the board with emails. So look for that email, and if you are not on the education newsletter, if you don't get emails from me, then come and see me and I'll get you on there. There's also one about the MLO, which is the mill levy override, that'll likely be on our ballot in the fall. There's some transparency issues with the district as well, so we need to hear from them about transparency and working with the union in order for that to successfully pass. There's also a charter school that they want to open, not the district. There's a charter school application that is happening. We are calling for people to encourage the board to reject that proposal. Also, there will be a letter in my newsletter, and I'm almost done. There's immigration, which we have been pursuing the board to strengthen their immigration policies all year. They have promised that they're having an outside legal team look at their policies, and we are hoping that there will be an update to policies at the start of the next school year. So I hope to have an update on that soon. We will be pressuring the board all summer to be like, where are the updated policies? So lots of things happening with education. I think the board is listening, the district is listening. So all good. Sorry, too much time.
Thank you, Darlon and Climate.
Thanks, I'm Darlon Chang for the Climate Action Team. And thanks to all those who've given public comment to City Council about the Arvada Climate Sustainability Action Plan. And thanks to all those who have let me know that you're planning to do so in the near future, because we're in the home stretch. It could be May 19th is the day that City Council votes on the Climate and Sustainability Action Plan. May 5th is also a business meeting that is available for people who want to give a public comment. I'm going to propose to leadership of APA that we give a letter of endorsement from APA, and this is the text that I'm proposing. Adopting the plan is an important step for advancing many progressive causes, not least of which is ensuring a sustainable world for present and future generations. Rising GHG emissions from dependency on fossil fuels threatens to destabilize the climate, and with it major pillars of modern life such as reliable food production and affordable insurance. High gas prices due to the Iran war show the clear link between fossil fuel dependency and war, and a rapid transition to clean energy would help liberate us from militarism and war. Pollution from fossil fuel emissions results in asthma and respiratory diseases that result in rising healthcare costs, and phasing out fossil fuel use would help make healthcare more affordable for all. Rising inequality due to the concentration of wealth has been exacerbated by a handful of fossil fuel companies dominating the energy industry and technology companies expanding AI fossil fuel energy use while reducing jobs. Adopting the KSAP would lay the groundwork for creating new sustainability and clean energy jobs, as well as the education needed for the clean energy transition. KSAP goals align with the causes of the Arvadans for Progressive Action, and we urge City Council to unanimously vote to adopt the Climate and Sustainability Action Plan so that other city plans, such as the Comprehensive Plan, will be developed in concert with its implementation. Our members look forward to volunteering and contributing to the implementation of KSAP, as well as developing other city plans to advance progressive causes. So that will be my proposal. If it's approved by the leadership, I'll be giving that either on May 5th or May 19th. And please let me know if you'd like to coordinate further on making these public comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Kathy Blake, Healthcare.
Hello, I'm Kathy Blake, Healthcare Action Team Leader. Our team advocates for a publicly financed, privately delivered healthcare system in Colorado and nationwide. Our goal is passing a ballot issue in 2028 to actually implement a single-payer healthcare system. And so we're trying to get support and grassroots and voters and legislators to support our effort. Healthcare events happening. One of them, they're Tuesday, May 5th at 1 p.m. is Donna Smith from SICO is presenting a panel on the impact of the big ugly bill on our healthcare system. It's going to be held at Clinica Family Health on Bryant Street in Westminster, and I'm going. Together we can raise awareness about healthcare cuts in Colorado, rising premiums, and the affordability crisis. We demand Congress cut costs, not care. The next APA Healthcare Action Team meeting will be on Saturday, May 16th at 4 p.m. If our deck is finished by then, it'll be outside in person. Otherwise, it'll be on Zoom. Friday, May 29th is Healthcare Movie Night, starting at a little earlier at 6:30 p.m. Attendees will get to select the movie that we show from SICO, either SICO, Big Pharma, the healthcare movie, or Healing Us. Come and join us and vote for your favorite movie. And contact kathy.m.blake@gmail.com for the location and prepare to be entertained. We were at, all right, just thank you to the people doing the petitions for healthcare.
Thank you. Pat Malone, Immigrant Partnership.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pat Malone, and I'm one of the leaders of the Immigrant Partnership Team. And we had a survey recently, and it showed us that a large number of people are really interested in mutual aid, it's things like getting groceries for people who are afraid to go out, and getting supplies from the community, supplies and money and groceries, things like that. So in the spirit of not recreating the wheel, we are like a sister partnered with Arvada, We Keep Us Safe, WKUS. And this is the group to tap into if mutual aid is something that appeals to you and that you want to know more about. They meet every other Sunday, and that includes tomorrow, at the Mirror Image Arts on Carr Street, and that's from 4 to 6 p.m. every other Sunday. And I'll be there tomorrow, and I hope some of you will be there also. Last week we had a joint meeting, a Zoom meeting with IPT and WKUS so that we could start to, they did a great job of sharing some of the work they're doing and some of their aspirational work that they could definitely do if they had more people to join them, which is why we're trying to, get people routed that way who have that interest. We recently spoke in front of City Council to express our appreciation to council members Mormon and Ambrose, who spoke very powerfully about their support for our Arvada immigrants. And also, many APAers were there to speak out against an immediate vote they were having that night on upgraded police department surveillance products. And though they did vote that night, even though we wanted them to defer it, they definitely got the message that we're paying attention. And I know you're going to hear more about this. There's several people, including Tyler and other APA members, who are very focused on this. Next month I'll talk about, I got you, Julie. I see you waving. Next month I'll talk about work being done by our IPT, not just WKUS. And as always, buttons are out on there. If you will wear it, pick one up. Red cards are out there for Know Your Rights. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tyler. Political action. What's your step?
And I apologize for still diagnosing some issues with the audio, so please bear with us. So my name is Tyler Knappe. I'm the political action lead, and I was just going to give you guys an update on where we are today. So last week we spoke, or I guess that was last month perhaps, we spoke at in support for Webley Gardens, and we want to see more housing, more affordable housing, and so if those are things that interest you, we will be meeting next week. It will be May 21st at 6:30 p.m. at Miriam Arts. That is every third Thursday at 6:30 p.m. The political action team will meet. And some of the things that we've been working on are securing a facility so that we can actually host candidates for a candidate forum. The current thought process is that we'd like to do this with any candidates who we did not endorse in the original surveys. And so we'd like to have those people come back, and we'd love to hear from them. And so we're trying to secure a facility for that at the moment, but the timing on that is looking to be either late May or early June. Beyond that, we're looking at doing non-compliance training for APA members as a way to sort of combat the current administration. We are looking at different ballot initiatives that are coming, and you'll see a APA membership for that, where we will endorse the ballot issues that we are in support of. So that'll come later on in the year. And beyond that, I think that wraps up for political action. So thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, anti-war. And it'll be followed by Julie and Mara, so if you two can be ready, we'll pick up our pace.
Yeah, hi. I'm Bruce Morrison, representing the anti-war team. Oops.
Well, some orange guy says we're not at war anymore.
We're not at war anymore. Let's see. Yeah, I won't go into all the details about what blow by blow of all the gruesome things that is happening. But I will say that there's some encouraging things. One is that we did phone calls. We sent out a call to action to call our members of Congress, and from Colorado, all 6 Democrats voted for the War Powers Act to try to prevent the war on Iran. So that was good news. The other good news is that the progressive anti-war candidates had so much support at the caucuses that Senator Hickenlooper withdrew from the caucus process and petitioned onto the ballot. The candidate that didn't get as much support at caucuses withdrew. So we have one progressive anti-war, anti-genocide candidate on the ballot against hiccups. So it's Julie Gonzalez. She has been endorsed by National Indivisible, State Indivisible, Working Families Party, Track APAC, and other progressive organizations. So we are hopeful that she will do well. The Anti-War Action Team is looking for new leadership. So if anyone is interested in leading the Anti-War Action Team, you can get with me after the meeting, or you can send me an email at Khotsong, KHOTSONG @gmail.com, or you can come to the meeting, which is May 14th at 6:30 at the Stanley Library, study room 1. Thank you.
Julie, social connections.
Hi, everybody here is doing amazing. I just want to tell you that. My contribution to fighting fascism is to try to build community, to let people know they're not alone. So I do things like book clubs and coffees and hikes. And although we talk about books, we also support each other so we don't lose our minds. This month, we have book club on, it's going to be Tuesday night the 12th. We're reading the second book, The Parable of the Sower. This is Parable of the Talents, about a dystopian future where fascists take over. Yeah, it gives you hope, actually, in the midst of all that. On the 23rd, which is a Saturday morning, we are going to revisit the Book of Joy. We did that a couple months ago, and it was such a success. Because what we saw, it's a book written by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, who both had tremendously difficult lives, and they show you how you can find joy in the midst of all this. So that will be a Saturday morning coffee, book club at the same time, and then on Thursday the 28th, we're going to have our end of the month after party from like 6 to 8 in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mara, rallies.
Hello. Our Sunday rally tomorrow at 80th and Wadsworth. We are moving to summer hours, so it's going to be an hour early, 10 to noon. And then we also have a Tuesday rally. That is at Ralston and Wadsworth, and that is 4 to 5:30 every Tuesday. And finally, we're starting a new one on Wednesdays. 4 to 5 at Kipling and 58th. So park in that church parking lot right there. We got permission from the church, so you can park there, and it's just an hour. Watch for various other rallies to pop up throughout the summer. We're thinking of doing a resist and relax rallies on Fridays during the summer. So maybe get out there with our signs and wave for an hour, and then go get a drink and enjoy each other's company for an hour, kind of thing. So look for those things to pop up throughout the summer. Thank you.
And we're ready for our main part of our meeting. Tyler, you're emceeing this part.
Can I borrow your agenda? Yes. All right, everybody. And so, as I think we're all aware, we're here for the comprehensive plan. And I'm going to briefly touch on that, which is a municipal effort to create a shared vision for the future of our community. And so this is kind of going to touch on everything. It touches parks, it touches open spaces, transportation, and then, you know, this is a collaborative environment for the whole community. And so that's one of the reasons we're here, is just to understand how we can actually participate in the comprehensive plan. And to lead us through that, it's going to be Paul Donegan. He's a senior planner at the city of Arvada and Arvada's long-range planning team. And Paul, you can come up, please. And Paul, if you wouldn't mind introducing your co-presenter. Yeah, I appreciate that. Sorry, I did not get the name.
That's all right. Thank you for having us. As Tyler said, sorry. set everything down. As Tyler said, Paul Donegan with City of Arvada on the Long Range Planning Team. And this is my colleague, Chris Sandeen, also a Long Range Planner. And we're the small and mighty team that will be leading up this project, but we're going to be, as Chris will elaborate, we're going to be working with all of you and a lot of other folks at the city as well to work on this project. So, yeah. I think if you do a Control L, I believe, it should go to full screen.
Let me give that a try.
While he's pulling that up, I'll give you guys a brief explainer about just the agenda, I guess, that we've got for us. We'll start by introducing the team. That's us, and we'll talk about all the other people that will be involved. And actually, you can start moving through here. We'll do a brief explainer about what the comprehensive plan is. No one had any homework. You didn't miss anything. You didn't have to show up knowing what that is. We're going to talk with you guys about that. And then we'll be doing a little overview of the project. We'll be talking about community engagement specifically, how we would love for people to be involved in this process. And then last, we'll do some Q&A. So start thinking of your questions as we're going through, and we'll do our best to answer the questions. With that, we'll start out. I'll give it to Chris.
Hello, everyone. Chris Sandeen. First, I want to say hello, my fellow APA members, which is funny because we're part of the American Planning Association, which is also APA. So when we saw this come through, we were like, very interesting. So first, I want to start with meet the team. So we've kind of got this three-pronged head here, and we're going to start with the most important part, the Arvada community. Traditional comprehensive plans in other communities may just go to public meetings, and you get only the people who show up to those meetings that actually influence the plan. We're trying to not do that here, and we want to incorporate everyone in the community, be it renters, be it homeowners, be it business owners, be it someone who doesn't live in Arvada but comes here for any number of things, or be it community groups like you guys. So we're trying to really reach out and get in touch with all these different members of the community, since they live here, they work here, they travel here, and they spend their money here. So we want to get their ideas as to how we can make Arvada better and more, just better for the future, and get that shared vision. And part of this is the City of Arvada. So you have Paul and I, there's a few others at the city. Up at the top, you've got our city council. They will be ratifying this plan. It's actually the Planning Commission who approves it. But it's our elected officials, our appointed officials. And then you break it down, and we're also being in touch with all the other departments at the city. So this isn't just CED or Community and Economic Development that's going to be leading this project. We need to be in touch with our vibrant neighborhoods community, our urban renewal, our finance, our infrastructure, our public safety. All the different groups in the city are going to be involved in this process one way or another, just to make sure, hey, is this shared vision that we're coming up with work for each of these different groups, to make sure we're not creating a vision that is unsustainable. And our consultant team. So we have a group of consultants here who are going to be helping lead this project, and you may see them out in the community. We have Sam Suter, who is with Meta Urban Design and Peter Park. They're going to be our main project consultants. And then they have a team with them as well. So they have Cascadia Partners, who is out of Oregon. They're going to be doing scenario planning for the city, and scenario planning is essentially looking at growth, housing, infrastructure, water. If we want to do this certain thing in this area, is it going to work? Do we have the infrastructure capabilities? All these different things. They're going to be looking at that data. Also, economic analysis and those sorts of things. Kimley Horn, they're going to be looking at this from a transportation lens and infrastructure. They recently just completed the city's transportation systems plan. That was just done a couple of years ago, so that is a very in-depth detail on transportation and different infrastructure improvements that the city is going to be looking at, as well as Equity Policy Solutions, who's going to be making sure that we're giving this an equity focus as well, making sure we're hitting all those groups you wouldn't normally hit if we're just going to public meetings. On top of that, we also have an engagement team. GBSN is going to be helping us come up with strategy so that we can make sure that we're reaching out and getting in touch with all these different folks that we need to talk to, as well as narrative designs and Camille Paul. They're going to be kind of designing the overall document and making sure it's looking good and sustainable, as well as it's a living document for the future and can be changed. So that's kind of their role in everything here too. So as Tyler mentioned, what is a comprehensive plan? It's a visionary document for the future. This one is going to be looking at a number of different things in a long-term roadmap as to how do we get where we want to go, be it in housing, economic development, transportation, sustainability, looking at all of those different elements, making sure they come together in a way that is supported and viable for the future. So why are we doing a new comprehensive plan? Typically, these documents are updated every 10 to 20 years, depending on the community that they're in. Our last one was done in 2014, which was really an update to the 2005 one that we had. So we're right at that 2022 time period right now. So much of that has really been implemented from the goals and policies that they wanted to do at that time. Not to mention the world has changed very much since 2014, as you all know. There's a lot of new things that need to be contended with that this plan also needs to take into consideration. Let's see what else. Also, wanting to engage the community, such as you all and the rest of the community, and really create that vision for the next 10 to 20 years for the city. As we move forward, say another COVID happens, are we prepared for it? Do we have something ready that we can be flexible on? Those are really different important issues that are coming up. And even AI was not a thing, 10 years ago? So how are we going to deal with that, or any other sort of things that life throws at you? So if you're wondering what exactly is in a comp plan, it kind of varies based on municipality, but typical things that come up are land use, housing, sustainability, transportation. In Colorado specifically, there is going to be a water chapter, as that's obviously very pertinent and important this year as well as every year. Parks, trails, open space, public health, equity, resiliency. There's a lot of different chapters that can come into play. That's something as well that we'll be talking to the community about as a whole and understanding, okay, what chapters do we need as well to prepare for in this plan. And I'm going to pass it over to Paul.
All right, awesome. So one question, Tyler sent us some of questions that he had. We had presented to the Neighborhood Leaders Network very briefly. I think I talked for up to, but probably less than 5 minutes. So you guys are going to get a much deeper dive on this. But he gave us some of the questions that he had, which actually really aligned well with a lot of the questions we've been hearing from folks so far. And one of those is, how does the comprehensive plan relate to other plans? We heard a little bit about the climate and sustainability action plans. This is a great connector for that. As you mentioned in your statement, they are connected. Each of these plans needs to be interrelated and really enforce or reinforce what the others have to say. And so one of the big differences is this comprehensive plan. It's overarching. We're answering that question: what does Arvada look like in 20 years? How do we get there? At a very high level. It can't go into the same level of detail because it would turn into a really long document that no one would want to read, and that makes it less useful. But it's really helpful for us to have that vision that tells us this is what people in Arvada would like us to strive for, and then often the plan will give direction, and I'll give a couple examples about how it can sort of set the tone so that other planning projects can get into that implementation and that strategy of how we actually achieve that vision. It's really important, as Chris mentioned, all these different departments within the city need to work together. We can't have one department working on a new park in an area where we don't have water infrastructure to keep the plants alive. So it's really important. That's a big part of this, is sort of that collaboration and coordination within departments. And we're going to be doing a lot of work in addition to coordinating with community members and getting your input. We got to talk with all the different departments at the city to make sure we're all on the same page and everyone is, on board with making this plan a success. A lot of times there are topic or area specific plans that come out of this. So the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan was a good example. But other ones would be sort of like a neighborhood plan. The area just south of Old Town, or actually Old Town has a reinvestment plan as well. They sort of came out of that post-COVID era of like, okay, we just transformed Old Town to handle this unique COVID situation. What do we do now? Like, what sorts of things did we implement that become permanent? What sorts of things did we try that we found successful or unsuccessful? And so this plan will sort of often have the big policy that says, hey, let's do some more work on this area because it's sort of a unique situation and we need to give it a little bit more thought and detail. So those are some of the ways that it's similar and different than other plans. Next slide. Another question we get a lot is, how does this relate to the Land Development Code or zoning? Which is an awesome question because it's very confusing. They talk about a lot of the same topics. And just for reference, Land Development Code is what the city calls our development regulations. But you might hear words like zoning or Land Development Code or regulations. Those sorts of things are a little bit interchangeable. But the comprehensive plan, again, sort of sets a high-level vision. It might say, in this area, we would like the neighborhood to develop in this way. Generally, we would like this neighborhood to be easy to walk around. We want it to be accessible to people with disabilities. Just sort of like the high-level vision for the city. And then the Land Development Code, a good example that my boss, or our boss, likes to use at the city is, if you're planning a dinner party, the comprehensive plan is the cookbook that you select. You kind of choose the menu that you want to go with. And then the Land Development Code or zoning is the actual recipe that you go with. It has we pick what we want generally, but then the Land Development Code and the zoning map tell you, we need a teaspoon of this and a cup of that. It's sort of those specific regulations of making that recipe happen, make the dinner party or the city successful. And so what you might see in the zoning code, if there's a policy in the comprehensive plan that says, let's be more accessible to folks with disabilities, well, the Land Development Code can say, when a new development happens, we need this many accessible parking spaces. We need sidewalks that can accommodate someone in a wheelchair. And so that's sort of how that connection happens. It really is, at this point, we're talking about that high level, but it's going to really inform changes in the future with the actual regulations. The next slide. All right, another great question we heard was, what have we accomplished since 2014? Do we have any good examples? And as we mentioned, the comprehensive plan is generally, we're reviewing it as being completed. A lot of the things that were in the comprehensive plan we consider completed. A lot of those are actually things that are ongoing, that the city changed the way we did things. We restructured a department here or there. We, put more money into a different budget to focus on, parks, for example. And those aren't necessarily things that are completed because they're ongoing. And so a lot of things that are ongoing, that are successful, continue to be ongoing. It's not a full-scale reimagining. We expect that there will be some things in the current comprehensive plan that will remain relevant to the community, but we're going into the process really open-minded and interested in hearing what people have to say. We're not necessarily wed to the way things have been going in the recent past. So an interesting example, when the last comprehensive plan was adopted, the G line was still 5 years away from opening. And it's, 2019, not that long ago, and at the same time, it feels like it is just central to how Arvada is now in some ways. Like it's a big part of what it means to live in Arvada, is that the G line is there. And so the comprehensive plan, you know, even though the train line hadn't been completed yet, started putting in the policies that said, all right, this area is going to have a station, this area is going to have a station. How are we going to connect people to these stations? What does development look like in these stations? We need space for people to drive and park. We need the ability for people to walk and bike. The city has, you know, implemented a scooter program to sort of like help with making those connections in cases where people don't have a car or a bike and need to get there a little bit quicker than walking. So that's something that was in the plan that has started being implemented. And of course, you know, there's potential for change there as well, but that's something that came out of that. And just the interest of time, I'll just hit on one other one. Water conservation was a big part of the last comprehensive plan. And looking at the policies there, we're like, okay, these are things that, you know, especially this year, but always in Colorado, but especially this year, are really top of mind. And some of the changes that came about because of the policies in the comprehensive plan was we improved our standards on I'm not even going to use the right word, stormwater runoff and how it is filtered into our streams and waterways. We've improved our standards on that. So developments, when they come in, have to account for stormwater runoff of their parking lots and improving the water quality in our community. So that was something that came out of the comprehensive plan that was implemented in that zoning code. But also allowing more water-wise landscaping and allowing more compact development, which tends to be a more per capita better use of water. It tends to use less water. So, and then the next slide was an interesting example. So in 2014, the comprehensive plan set out to do two things. One, we didn't have a parks and trails and open space plan, and the comp plan said, we need this. People in Arvada care a lot about parks, trails, and open space. Let's have a plan that tells us how to make these parks better. And then it also said, we want everyone in Arvada to have access to parks. At the time, that was 2014, 2 years later, the city did that plan. At that point, they found that, you know, just over 9 in 10 Arvadans had access to a park within a quarter mile. You see this, the numbers have changed a little bit, but now it's 96% of the community is within a 10-minute walk. And those are roughly the same distance, but I think the 10-minute walk is a little bit better because it accounts for those times when technically you're close, but it's not easy to get to. And so the city kind of changed our metric on that. But generally, it just shows you the trend. That's something that came out of the comprehensive plan, turned into this more detailed plan, and has led to, I think, a really good success story that, honestly, you talk to like any other city, not just in Colorado, but in the country, and like 96% of people being within 10 minutes of a park is like incredible. Like I've never seen anywhere else that has that that kind of access. So I think a really cool Arvada success story. All right. So those are some of the questions we heard. In terms of our process, we're looking at an 18 to 20 month project, and I'll be honest with you, it doesn't take 18 to 20 months to come up with the policies like let's have a parks plan. Where that time is spent is really getting to know the community, getting to know what you all have to say. That's where the time and energy is really spent over the next 18 to 20 months. And so we hope that we see you at lots of events. I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. But we'll be doing a lot of community engagement events throughout the process. And so I'll give you some information about how to stay involved, but that's just generally the timeline. We're looking at the fall of next year being when the plan is ideally adopted by the Planning Commission and City Council. Next slide. These are the phases that we're going to be going through. The first, how did we get here? We're going to be looking a lot at the history of Arvada, the decisions that have been made in the past, the good and the bad, understanding what's gone well, what hasn't. We need to learn lessons from the past. But we'll also be jumping into the where are we now? And that's kind of where we start getting a little bit deeper into the conversation with the community. Just knowing a little bit about current conditions, you know, where are the issues? where are the things that are working well, and those opportunities to sort of fine tune the things that are working well. And then the third phase is where do we want to go? That's kind of that visioning portion where we're going to really hopefully work with the community on getting a consensus on a vision of what Arvada should look like in 20 years, building off of all of this data and information and feedback that we've heard from the community over the course of the project up to that point. And then that's really going to set the tone for that last bit, which is how do we get there? And that's probably the hardest part. That's where we start crafting those policy statements and those prioritization matrix. What happens first? What do we need to achieve first? What's the highest priority to the community? That's another opportunity where we'll be doing a lot of community engagement and saying, hey, we heard, well, I'm sure we'll have heard hundreds or thousands of ideas. We're going to need to hear from you all about what's the most important, what do we prioritize. Next slide. And then in terms of community engagement, we're really committed to doing this right, and that means being collaborative. We have expertise in city planning, but you all have expertise in your neighborhoods and your lived experience in Arvada, and we think that it's essential that we kind of marry the two things together, and so we'll want this process to be really collaborative and an opportunity to have conversations back and forth. We think there's going to be a lot of places where we agree. There's going to be times when we need to come to a consensus on an issue that's going to be tricky. We're going to be open and curious. That means not making assumptions about what people want. We want to hear what people want, and then build off of that to understand exactly where we go forward from there. We want to be inclusive. If you care about Arvada, we want to hear from you. That's the main metric, but we're going to be keeping track of sort of demographics, who's participating, who are we missing, what voices are not in the room, and that's a big part of, I think, sort of like the equitable policy group that will be part of this process, is making sure that we're factoring in the voices that aren't there, and we're already doing a lot of, I think, strategizing about reaching communities that historically haven't been involved in these sorts of projects. And the last thing, we want to be robust and trusted. That means we want opportunities all the time in a lot of different ways so that people can participate how they feel comfortable. And we are also committed to reporting back what we hear from the community so that folks can say, yeah, you heard us right, or hey, I don't think you heard me right when I said that. And here's the feedback that we received, and here's what we did with it. We don't want it to be a black hole of like, well, we shouted at you for, this idea that we really wanted to happen and we were committed to this, and then nothing happened with it. What happened? We want people to be able to have trust in the process. Next slide. This will be kind of hard for folks to read, but generally this is sort of just like a lot of examples of how we're going to be reaching the community. Community listening and learning tours, public meetings, meeting with community groups such as yourselves, art projects, focus groups. We're going to be meeting with nonprofit partners. The Mirror Image Arts group came up a couple times already. We've already connected with them, and they're helping us connect with nonprofits, especially those serving children in the Arvada and Jefferson County area. We're going to be working with them to make sure that their voices are included in this. Online surveys, in-person events. We want to make it so that however you feel comfortable participating, there's an opportunity for you to do that. Next slide. And we have already started. Just to preface this, we're not very far in, but as we've been waiting for our consultants to come on board and we're going through the contracting process, our team has been pretty excited about doing a lot of engagement and hearing from the community. And we've really focused specifically on youth engagement so far because their school year is, finite, and they're in testing season and spring break. And so we started thinking about this last fall, and we did a lot of engagement with Arvada youth already this year. We were at the Arvada High School community night. We did an event at City Hall where we had 60 students from Arvada High School and Arvada West High School, and we learned so much, including we shouldn't have started with 60 our very first time, but it went better than we expected in that sense. But it was really awesome. We had all of our city council members and mayor was there to meet the students, respond to their questions. They had amazing, really insightful questions. It was very inspiring. We also asked them a lot of questions. We're like, hey, help us design this neighborhood. What types of housing belong in different areas? What types of transportation issues do you have around your school? What does the city need to know about being a young person in Arvada, and how can we make Arvada a place that you feel like you can live in when you graduate? We want this to be a place that people are able to return to. We were at the Kite Festival. We're going to be at Summerfest coming up. What else have we got on here? Oh, Neighborhood Leaders Network. We did a workshop with the City Council and Planning Commissions. We've already kind of started in on this, but it's very much, hopefully it's been clear, it's not too late. We just started, there's gonna be tons of opportunities, including we'll do some Q&A after this. Next slide. And that kind of brings us to our last slide. I've got a QR code up here as well as a link to our website. I also have a sign-in sheet, or not sign-in sheet, sign-up sheet. We are going to be sending emails out to anyone that signs up, and you can do that here. I'll pass this around. Also, on that website, you'll be able to sign up for updates. And that'll include things like upcoming events, online surveys, ways to share your opinions. And then one last thing to plug would be that we're doing a community advisory group. And so we are getting applications from anyone that's interested up until May 15th. And we would love to have as many people, put in their interest as possible. We do need to keep it a small group. That's why we had to do an application process, because we need it to be a group that we can have, some of these conversations with and bounce ideas. It'll be a bit of a brainstorming group. But that will not be the only group that gets involved. We want to assure you that will be a group that we brainstorm with and get some feedback with. But we're going to be collecting and reporting back on our information to everyone else, not just that group. But if you're interested, you can sign up on the website. Tyler has also offered to allow us to share that link out with everyone via your guys' newsletter as well. And so we'll provide information to that. And it sounds like there's a whole ton of people that are on the email list. And so so we'd love to hear from as many of you as possible. With that, that's the end of our presentation. We'll do some questions and answers. Hopefully that was on time and on schedule. Like the project, we'll hold it up. Yeah.
I'll take it's going to be like a passing this back and forth.
Okay, I'm going to sit down. I have so many questions, but mostly I'm wondering how you guys are capturing the data and parsing through it. Like, so if I tell you something now that I'm like, oh, parks are really important, how are you capturing that data? Like, tell us about how our voice is being heard.
Yeah, that's great. It will depend on the event. So in this case, we know this is being recorded, so we can come back and listen to it. Otherwise, we're going to be like taking notes at an event like this. And then often we'll be doing an online survey so we can collect that data. We're going to be putting, Chris and I have already been working on our master spreadsheet of information. We also have all those events that we've done so far. We're writing up a report on those that have photos and some of those we have an activity where people are putting a dot on their preference. I think there was a sustainability and resilience group that met for our youth engagement event, and they were sort of telling us their priorities. And so we have that, a photo of that we'll include in the report, so we'll be able to sort of show our work, and then having this spreadsheet that sort of keeps track of everything, and we'll be categorizing things by topic, and then we'll be providing sort of a response or what we did with that information. That part will be, I think, the hardest because we need to, a lot of those decisions on what we did with the feedback come later in the process. Right now we're going to be collecting as much feedback and information as possible. And so we won't necessarily have a good right now, here's what we heard and here's what we're doing with it. At this point it's just here's what we heard. And we want to make sure that we heard it correctly, but the data part will be that's sort of later in the project. Does that answer your question
Yeah.
all right?
I just wanted to make sure like you would have data to back up, like everybody says they want sustainability. Like you'll have a number behind that, like we captured it from this many different groups.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and I'll just repeat that just to
Please.
make sure that
That'd be
other folks can have heard. She was saying that like she would like to make sure that we have a data point so that when we're saying like if everyone says we really care about sustainability, we've got a data point to point to. We will also. I think there's like a little bit of wiggle room in the sense that we need to, it might not necessarily be like a voting exercise on each policy. We don't necessarily want to have everyone in the communities, do a thumbs up or thumbs down on everything. We want to help get that vision that provides clarity and those goals, and then not necessarily say like, this policy was supported by the most people, but we'll probably incorporate that into the prioritization. So we won't necessarily define what goes into the plan as much as how we prioritize things, because we'll also need to balance like the department priorities. So if we hear like the transportation and infrastructure team says, okay, like this new sidewalk that fills in this gap in our sidewalk network, people didn't necessarily bring it up, but we know it's critical and it's important. So there will need to be some qualitative ways to also advance projects that we know are important. So hopefully we're providing enough transparency in how that all works that it feels comfortable. I don't want to sound too wishy-washy about it, but that's sort of, there will need to be a little bit of like that quantitative and qualitative data. Yeah.
And if we just want to ask questions and repeat them, that's perfectly
Yeah, that's fine too.
Whichever you'd like to do, Mindy.
I have a comment and a question. Okay. My comment is Arvada's motto is we dream big and deliver. And I think with a comprehensive plan, you're going to have a lot of people with a lot of big dreams. The question I would hope you ask is how can you help us deliver? I mean, we're a bedroom community. We don't have, our budget isn't great as a city. So we'd love to do everything for everyone, and that's going to be really hard. And I know one of your areas was economic development, but I think this really needs to be an education for the people in your community engagement events about we need help in delivering on all the dreams you have for our city. That's my comment. My question is about the comprehensive plan. I always thought it was aspirational, which it sounded like you described it that way. At the recent public hearing for Welby Gardens, those neighborhoods were quite adamant that you have to follow it. It's not aspirational. If it says low density in West Arvada, it has to be low density in West Arvada. So I don't know if there's a way to really address that or not. But...
Great comment and question. I'll start with the comment. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we get into the qualitative part of things. It reminds me, I did on a project that I was working on. Actually, this was when I was a student, and we did community engagement with a middle school group, and we were saying like, hey, how do you guys get to school? Are there other ways that you would like to get to school? And we had like a group of students, these were middle school students, were like, we want hot air balloons, and we were like, I love it. I mean, suggesting you're open to alternatives to getting around. However, we're gonna have to nix that one because that's not something that we can pull off. So there's going to have to be a budget conversation. There's going to have to be sort of like making sure we're meeting with all the departments, and we're going to be, presenting these things back to them and saying, hey, here's what we're hearing from the community. Can you achieve all of this? And we expect, in most cases, they're going to be pretty excited and gung-ho to know what the community wants them to prioritize. But we also know there's going to be some things that the departments are going to say, oh, like, we're going to need, 2 more staff members to be able to pull that off. And that's a big part of the comprehensive plan. It does end up really informing the city's budget. It helps us know where to prioritize things. And so the things that kind of rise to the top that we think are feasible, but we're not there yet. We need more staff, or we need the budget, or we need to find a grant that can help us with this. There's a myriad of ways to accomplish something. We're going to have to figure those things out, and that's often part of that implementation discussion and that last phase. It's like, all right, here's the vision, here's all the things we want to achieve. How are we going to go about achieving those? So that's hopefully captures that. That'll be like a tricky conversation. And then your question about sort of the comprehensive plan and how it influences development. The Arvada comprehensive plan currently, there's not necessarily a rule about how cities have to do their comprehensive plan in terms of that land use question of like how prescriptive does it need to be. The city of Arvadas does tend to be more prescriptive or more tied to zoning than some communities. And some communities, there's sometimes not even like a boundary of like property lines that tell you what a certain area needs to be. It's like a blob that says this neighborhood should be walkable and more dense, and this neighborhood is more suburban in character. And the city's current comprehensive plan and how it ties to the zoning code is a little bit more woven together. And I think as I said before, there are things where like, if it's not broke, we won't fix it. If we hear from the community that it's broke and we do need to fix it, that's going to be something that we'll have to explore. So I won't commit to anything right now because we haven't heard from, you're the first person to bring it up. So we won't follow the first person's leader necessarily, but I think it's going to be essential to have that conversation of how much these should be tied together. So they're back. And you can shout it forward and I can repeat it if you prefer.
I have 3 things.
Oh, I'll let you go.
I spent my career doing long-range strategic planning, so I have a lot of ideas. But one of the things that you always do is you list out your assumptions as you're planning. And society has changed so much that the assumption that a plan like this can live for 10 years may be outdated now, because with the advent of AI and people losing jobs and that steady economic base, that may no longer be an assumption that we can count on. One of the gaps I see, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but just identify and process things, is that you've got a very healthy faith community here. And they can be under that community of nonprofits, but don't count them out because they can be a very vital part of your planning process. And when I listen to, I want to pile on what Mindy was saying, that people have an idea of Arvada as being the character of a small town. And when you think about what you want as you plan forward and a vision, you don't want to lose grasp of what that character is that you have and that you enjoy. And so you need to somehow be able to capture that in the process.
Awesome, those are great comments. I guess I feel like the first one is probably the first one to sort of like, I guess, respond to. I don't know. Yeah.
You're absolutely right on the length of it. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Better? Okay. Yeah, and we had that conversation actually internally as well about, is there certain elements of this that we should be looking at in a short range and being more flexible in the long term, given just how things have been going in the past, 10, 20 years. So, like you said, traditionally 10, 20 years, look in 10, 20 years, I'll say look 10, 20 years ago and how different everything is now, and how were you able to even envision something like what's happened in the world, right? So that's a great comment and something that we've kind of been chatting about internally too.
One minor thing to add to that also is that the city does do sort of like a minor update every year of our comprehensive plan. And so it isn't always with this level of detail that we are able to engage the community and dedicate, hiring a consultant and getting all this help. But we do every year, look at our comprehensive plan, look at our zoning code, and update those to sort of like reflect things. So it's essential, as Chris mentioned, we do need to have some flexibility to prepare for the future, because it is so impossible to predict, even if our job is planning for the future. That's an important realization for us to have, is that we can't fully do that, but that's a great comment. And then, yeah, I guess in terms of the engagement outreach, I totally appreciate that. Love to hear ideas about groups that you guys are hearing that aren't getting involved. So hearing about the faith-based community as being a group to engage with is really great to hear. We'll add that to our list. This gentleman was first here.
Yeah. I'll come on. Yeah. In terms of this being aspirational, and you have a lot of good vision of what should happen in Arvada. A number of years ago, Arvada lost a tax increase election, and one of the reasons was the significant budget for Arvada Urban Renewal Association that was spent without a lot of taxing, without voter citizen input. So are you entertaining any ideas about shutting down Arvada Urban Renewal Authority?
Great question. I personally haven't heard anything, so sorry to not give you a yes or no on that. I think that would ideally love to hear a yes or no. I haven't heard anything about that, and so we'll have to talk with our team and the folks at the city. I'm not sure. Good question. Oh yeah.
So if I can just jump off of that, I'm hosting conversations in the community, and May 14th from 5:30 to 7, we'll be talking with Aura. So I can send the information if you're interested in being part of that conversation and sharing more or asking questions. The goal is to bring together community members, elected officials, and then different parts of our community, such as Aura, or previously to the neighborhood leaders. So I would love for you to be part of that conversation if you're interested.
Yeah, I would be interested. Unfortunately, I have an anti-war meeting.
Well, that's where our other future engagement opportunities, online, in person. Very, very valid and relevant question. Sorry I don't have an answer for it. Well, there'll be lots of things that I don't have an answer to, sadly. This gentleman here was first.
I'm curious, like, how do you prioritize sort of global goals in your plan? So it sounded like, for 10 to 20 years. So to provide some quick context, right, I've been climbing 14ers for the past 20 years, and I've seen marked decline in snowpack quality and stuff like that firsthand. And I have a daughter, 9 years old. When I started doing this, I was like, oh, there won't be glaciers in 60 years, so probably by the end of your lifetime. But now I'm like, especially seeing this winter, I'm like, there won't be glaciers in the next 20 years, right? Yeah. So I'm curious, there's Paris Agreement goals, which the U.S. has like stepped away from. Even countries like India and other much lower per capita income countries are contributing to those goals. And curious, at a local level, is there anything that we do based on how your approach to taking data and stuff like that? It sounds like, and this is totally legit, we should prioritize infrastructure and access and things like that. But is there any contribution to kind of global offsetting global climate credits, whatever? Sorry, I didn't word that very well. But
no,
you get the idea?
Yeah, generally, I'll repeat it. Generally, I won't be able to do a word for word. But the question was sort of, how does this comprehensive plan tie into sort of things that are happening outside of Arvada, nationally, internationally, even just at the state? And specifically, you were talking about climate change and sort of like what Arvada can do to play its part in sort of like this larger picture that generally we can't drive the bus on, but like how are we I guess being a passenger in the direction that we would like that issue to be acted on. That's I think a really good example of how the comprehensive plan might set sort of like a high level goal of like, here's what Arvada looks like sort of as a sustainable community. And we're kind of coming after the climate and sustainability action plan in this case. So in that case, that plan really looked at what are Arvada's emissions, how are we creating our global or greenhouse gas emissions, and what can we do to reduce those and also adapt to climate change and build in resilience. And so the comprehensive plan in this case might have things that are say like, hey, we have this plan. I guess it hasn't been adopted yet, but just to, you know, like build off of the potentially adopted plan to say, hey, we have this plan already. We think we need to implement it, and we think we need to prioritize it in this way, or these are the departments that need to work together to achieve this, and we should, you know, maybe whether it's transportation emissions or, you know, emissions from energy and or, you know, homes or industry or whatever, these are the things we need to prioritize generally. That's maybe how it would tie in.
I guess my follow-up there is like, based on your response to the data collection, right, it sounds like your priorities will be weighted by the number of voices that you hear, and the number of voices you hear in Arvada around those larger goals won't be that many. You might have the occasional crackpot like me talking about that stuff, right? And then I'll also go and talk about all the local stuff, because education and all of those other issues matter a lot to me as well. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, you'll hear one voice versus 3 million of the other ones, so I feel like it's just gonna, none of this ever grabs attention until like an asteroid hits or something crazy.
Yeah, so just to repeat, he was elaborating sort of on that data collection point that we were talking about earlier. Like, hey, if, you know, one group has a strong opinion on this and there's more of them, then we won't do it because another group didn't have as many voices in the room. That's a big reason why we want to have so much community engagement. We really want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible, getting a representative voice as possible. Yeah. And then also that's kind of where that qualitative part goes in, where, you know, if we get a lot of feedback, I'm going to not use the sustainability plan as an example since it hasn't been officially adopted yet, but the transportation plan has been adopted, and it sets out goals for you know, like how we invest in infrastructure, and how we, you know, think about moving people through Arvada. And if this comprehensive plan comes out and, you know, we have like a big push of people that are like, get rid of that policy that we've already adopted, that's where we really have to like make the decision, and that's where it really comes down to our elected and appointed officials to say, hey, we know you heard a lot from this group, and not to discount that opinion, but in terms of how the city is operating and prioritizing our budget, we're going to continue to, you know, prioritize this this direction, and that's I think important for us. There's going to be things that come up in the plan. I'll use the hot air balloon example. That if it just goes gangbusters, everyone wants hot air balloons to get around town. That's a matter of being like, great, we heard you, and we're going to transparently tell you that we're not going to go with that plan, even though it was very popular. Everyone in the whole middle school focus group really wants hot air balloons, but we're not going to do it. And here are the reasons why. So that's on us to be transparent about those places. We do want this to be grounded in the reality of what people want, but there's going to be times when it runs up against other things, and that's where we have to, you know, tie it to the budget, tie it to, you know, the elected officials that also ran and were voted into office with a certain platform, and that's on them to say, hey, like, my, you know, judgment is that this is the way we should go with this, and so we need to, you know, go in that direction, even though we had, you know, 1,000 people hit our online survey and say, don't do this. So hopefully that answers your question. This one was next.
I am just wondering who decides to be on the committee that's kind of your brainstorming committee, and how you would choose those. I mean, my concern is there's some pretty strong opposing factions in this town on lots of different issues. And I just want to feel confident that that brainstorming will kind of encompass all of those. I guess if you don't have a contentious meeting, you didn't get the right group. Is kind of my worry. And, you know, having applied to some committees, and because I'm a outspoken person, you know, I have never passed muster. So I just don't know how that will be chosen, and I would caution you to be very careful about including lots of people.
Yeah, thank you. We can go back to our first topic, but things that keep me up at night. There's one. How do we fix the committee? No, it's a really great question. Part of our application process is we do ask a lot of questions about, you know, topics that people are interested in, their demographics, their zip code. We really want the committee to represent all parts of Arvada, all the people of Arvada, all the viewpoints of Arvada. We're hoping to get people in the room that disagree on key issues. Let me restate your question, and then I'll come back to it. The question was how we're going to select people for the community advisory group that I mentioned on the last slide of the presentation, just so for everyone to hear. And then back to my answer. We want it to be really representative. We want voices in the room that disagree cordially. That's going to be a big part of it, is that we're looking for people that don't agree on things. We're not afraid to have loud voices in the room. We just want people that will be on the committee that will be collaborative and open-minded, and we specifically ask for people that can not only advocate for their opinion, but advocate for people that they represent, whether that's their neighborhood or you know, their experience in Arvada. You know, they might be new to Arvada. We want them to think about the people that they know that are, you know, they can represent, and then also all the people that they don't represent. So it's going to be a challenge. We want people to be open-minded, and that's going to be part of us building in the ground rules of that group to say, hey, like, we don't want anyone to control the meeting and, you know, be the person that drives the whole conversation. And that's going to be a big facilitation challenge for us. But we are asking those questions up front so that we can pick folks that we think, you know, will represent that, all the variety of opinions and perspectives. And then also just to, you know, reaffirm that, like, it's one group. They're not voting on the plan. We're not going to ask them to say yes or no to anything. It's literally going to be a group that we convene 6 to 8 times throughout the process is kind of our thinking at this point, at key points to say, hey, here's a deliverable. Help us look for typos. Help us, you know, see, we're going to be challenging them to sort of like help read these, you know, reports of the information that we've collected so far. Are we capturing the right things? Are we going in the right direction? Some of those conversations, and I think similar to the community feedback, it will be helpful for us to hear from them, but it won't necessarily be a group that has veto power on anything. It will be a group that will be advising, and that's why we put advising in the name and not, you know, the community de facto decision-making group or whatever. So hopefully that answers your question.
My question is how you're going to identify the different groups around the city that you're going to speak to, like you are doing today. I live in the Westwoods part of West Arvada, but people only hear West Arvada, which is Candelas and Biden Rock. And I want to be sure that, for example, my Westwoods area that borders Jefferson County, where you don't have an influence, or, you know, how do any of us who want to be sure that our group, whether it's an official group or a neighborhood group, how do we make sure that they get heard, or that we get you to speak to them or whatever?
Yeah, great question. That's something we're actively working with.
Go ahead and repeat it.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, Bridget. The question was, how are we making sure that we're engaging all these different groups? How are we picking which groups to present to, like you all? And how are we going to make sure that, you know, the people that we speak to and include in the project, you know, represent all the parts of Arvada and all the different communities of Arvada? Does that generally capture? Okay. Great question. We are actively working on that, and that's part of our consultants team's challenge as well. They work on these types of projects in a lot of communities, and they're all, with the exception of one of the sub-consultants, local. So they have a lot of connections as well. We also have challenged ourselves as, you know, city staff to really build into our connections with the community and get to know as many folks as possible and as many community groups as possible. And that's going to be something we're currently working on in terms of strategizing how to engage as many people as possible, recognizing that we have a limited, you know, number of people and hours, and how do we, you know, prioritize and make sure we're reaching as many people as possible. And so we're going to get creative with that. I think in some cases we're going to be able to come and meet with a group such as yourselves and do a presentation, do some question and answers. We were talking about HOAs. There are more, we don't know how many HOAs there are in Arvada. There's a lot. And so that's something that we've actively thought about. We're like, well, what if we come up with a toolkit for HOAs that we can connect with somebody from each HOA? We're actively working on finding out all the HOA groups, and can we give a toolkit to each HOA with questions that we would love to have feedback on, and have them at their next HOA meeting walk through that and talk with people about, you know, these questions, and then provide us the information back, because we won't be able to attend every single HOA meeting. And so that's like one example of how we're kind of trying to get creative to reach as many people as possible. We also know that we need to prioritize our energy and efforts on, you know, groups that aren't often at the table for these sorts of conversations. And so, you know, like one thing we're doing with, or we've already been doing, is having Spanish language interpretation offered at our events. So in our youth engagement events, we had an interpreter available for any students that would like to, you know, like speak in their native language or the language that they're most comfortable in. And so we're having to get creative there as well to make sure that we're putting our energy and effort into kind of reducing the barriers for those groups as well. And it's totally a balancing act, but I think the best way that we can do this is getting the information out to as many people as possible, which is why we're presenting with you all. And also, you guys are our first group. And the reason why you're selected is that Tyler reached out to us and said, hey, can you present to us? So you guys are our guinea pigs. We love your feedback after that. But that's a big part of it, is I think we're figuring that out, but those are kind of our North Stars of, like, we want to engage as many people as possible. So, you know, signing up on our email list, and then we encourage you to, you know, send that information to your neighbors, community groups, church groups, anyone that you think would be involved, which is anyone that cares about the future of our event. Yeah.
Let's make this the last question.
Okay, just so if I just got 20 of my neighbors together, would you come talk to them? Or do you want
I think
to
that's what we're figuring out, is like, how are we going to prioritize, or how are we going to, like, yeah, use our time to meet as many people as possible, talk to as many people as possible. That could be an opportunity where we were talking about, like, meeting in a box, where it's like we create this toolkit where we can give anyone that wants this to do a neighborhood meeting. Or like you know, you guys have all your subcommittees. It could be an activity that we could provide you several meetings in a boxes to do an activity as a group, and maybe you can, you know, come at it with the perspective of each of your groups, or, you know, however you'd like. But it's maybe an activity that we could provide to anyone that is interested. So we're figuring that out. I don't have this is exactly what we're going to do, but that's, I think, an idea that we've been kicking around internally.
Jen, real quick, it's not quite a question.
Yeah.
More of a, can you pass the sign-up sheet around?
Yes.
And we will be getting a presentation from you and sending it out, because what our group gets really hung up on is process and like fairness, but you didn't actually get to hear from us any of our priorities. And so I want to make sure that everybody is able to like submit like sustainability or parks or this, that, the other is a priority. So is it already available online for us to like send out so that everybody here and our larger members can fill out the form?
Great question.
That repeated.
Yes, I will repeat. So the question was, can we hand out the sign-up sheet? Yes, and then also anyone who's listening online or on the recording, you can go to the website on that last slide. There's a QR code and the link to our website to sign up for updates. At this point, the reason we haven't asked you for priorities is because we're not even there yet. So we're truly in the infancy of the project. We just started working with, I think last week, did our first community engagement work session brainstorming with our consultant team. So we're actively working on responding to a lot of the questions that you guys had about sort of like, how are we gonna, connect with everybody? So we're figuring that out. And those sorts of things, I think if you're on the email list, we'll be like pushing that out, not like tons of emails, like probably like once a month or something, like a project update, or like here's this next opportunity, an in-person event or an online survey, and these are the the types of questions. And it will, I think, start big picture. It'll start with like, man, what is your vision for Arvada? What does Arvada look like to you in 20 years? What ideas do you have? And then as we go through the process, we start narrowing down and getting, maybe not even narrowing down, getting more specific is probably it, where we start getting into like, all right, what are your priorities? What topics do you think the city needs to prioritize? Okay, we heard from you, here's what we heard from you. And now we come to you with another round of engagement. Based on your priorities, here's all the programs and policies and ideas that we have. What do you think of those? What are we missing? How would you prioritize those? And then we take all that information and we build that into the next phase, and we come back to you and we say, this is what we heard from you. Here's the plan. Comment on it. Tell us what we got right, what we got wrong. So it's going to be really iterative. And so being sort of like signed up will be the best way to sort of like stay involved in the process and understand, where we are. We'll be providing updates, including things like, here's what we heard, here's the next phase. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right? Okay.
So there's nowhere for us to give you feedback yet.
Ask his question. He's had his hand raised for a while.
Yeah, nothing yet, but coming soon.
Okay.
So.
Last question?
I think the question needs to be one-on-one. If you guys can stay for a little bit.
Sure.
We try to end our meetings on time. Thank you all for being here. Do stay and converse and so forth. Tyler will be in the hallway with his laptop if you want to make sure you're on an action team. If you're not yet a voting member of APA, he can help take care of that for you. And Bob's got his petition in the back corner. Our next meeting is May 6th, and Bruce has a petition. Our next meeting is June 6th, D-Day. See you here or wherever else we decide to meet. We'll let you know. Thank you to our speakers. True, we may change. If June 6th is Summerfest, we will probably adjust.
And just one point of order for anybody who's here, you guys got to see the presentation. I did not share the screen. So for those who are on Zoom and who want to see the presentation, if you're comfortable with it, drop me your email in the Zoom chat, and I will make sure you receive that presentation. And that's it.
So that we can quickly